Hello, good morning, and welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one-stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. Welcome to another session of the Hindu News Analysis dated 16th December 2024. And in today's session, these are the 12 very important articles that I've taken up for discussion. Out of these 12, 11 are from Hindu newspaper, and one article is from Business Line. Although many other articles were there, mainly from economy, in other newspapers, already I've taken 12, so that's the reason I have not taken up more articles today. Before I start the discussion, if you like this initiative, do hit the like button. And if you yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. A very important announcement. The course of your preparation, generally, it will take more than 1 year. And in this particular process, you will face multiple challenges. You'll have to refer to multiple resources for multiple subjects. You'll have to keep on updating current affairs, appear for multiple prelims as well as mains test series, which are of very good quality. And at various instances, you will also require mentor assistance. All of this is available in the subscription package that we are offering to you. And the beauty of this subscription package is that if you purchase for 9 months, we will provide additional 9 months free of cost. And the same is applicable for the 12-month subscription. You will get extension of another 12 months and 18 months plus 18 months free extension. But if you want to get the extension and also if you want to talk to us, get assistance from the faculties, all you need to do is use the code provided here, IAS English. If you want further details, do click on the link provided in the description below. Let me start the discussion. The first important article, India's attempt at mineral diplomacy. Now, in recent times, there is a discussion of a very important component called as critical mineral. Now, like you need raw materials for manufacturing of any of the goods, you will also require certain minerals which are very less in supply, and any disruption in the supply of this will create a larger impact on the economy. For example, there are minerals such as cobalt, palladium, rhodium, lithium, etc. And these minerals, if there is any disruption in the supply of this will create a larger impact on the overall economy. Such minerals are called as critical minerals. Please remember the definition of this. And there is a lot of discussion surrounding the critical minerals for a simple reason. Historically, if you see, there is always a competition amongst the countries to get access to multiple resources. Resources such as human resources, mineral resources, etc. But in recent times, multiple countries are using these access to resources and they are weaponizing this, which is disrupting the supply of this, and as a result of which, the global supply chains are disrupted and the economic activities in multiple countries are also getting disrupted. For example, in recent times, USA and European Union have been taking multiple measures as a step or multiple measures to contain certain activities of the Chinese market. As a retaliation to these measures being taken by United States of America, China very recently announced that they'll be stopping exports of certain critical minerals. And when a country which accounts for majority of the production of critical minerals, a large component of processing of critical minerals happens in China. So when such country, which is very important in the whole supply chain process, takes certain measures to contain or to stop the export of the critical minerals, country which is import dependent will be affected by this. This is essentially weaponization. This is essentially the concept of weaponization of supply of critical minerals. And the term weaponization is nothing new in the international trade as such. Earlier, when Russia invaded Ukraine, the G7 group of countries weaponized dollar and imposed a lot of sanctions on Russian market or Russian economy to cripple the Russian economy. So whenever you talk about international supply chain of raw materials, the exporter of these raw material can weaponize this export and restrict or prohibit the export of this, which will hamper the supply chain, which will hamper the economic activity done by the importing country. Now, in this context, what is being discussed? The government of India in recent times has taken multiple measures to basically ensure that the supply of critical minerals is continued. Imports of this will happen without any restriction, without any problem. And by the way, India is a very important country, or India is a country in terms of net imports of critical minerals. For example, in the financial year 23, look at the data here. For the financial year 23, the critical minerals which were imported into India from only China was more than 34,000 crore rupees. More than 34,000 crore. We are import dependent on certain critical minerals such as lithium. We import cobalt, copper, etc. And even for that matter, nickel. So being import dependent country, at any point of time, let's say the relationship between India and China, if they worsen, like it happened earlier, if the relationship will worsen, what if China will weaponize the export of these critical minerals to India? It will hamper economic activity. And when you look at where all the critical minerals are used, these are just some of the examples. We use critical minerals in manufacturing of electric vehicles. We will use these in manufacturing of solar cells, which are very much essential to promote renewable energy target in India. We use this in the aviation sector, etc. So the critical minerals have so many applications throughout multiple activities that are conducted in the whole economic supply chain cycles. Now, understanding this particular problem, Government of India back in the year 2022, that is the Ministry of Mines, set up a committee. The name of the committee, please make a note of this and remember this. The committee was headed by Joint Secretary Veena Kumar Dharmal. Veena Kumar Dharmal. And based on the recommendation of this particular committee, Government of India has identified 30 minerals as critical minerals, and this is the first list which has been published by Government of India. And using this particular list, now government says there will be more focus on production, supply, processing of critical minerals in India. Now these are certain important points. In addition to this, what is provided in the article? Let's understand what is given in the article as well. With weaponization of these critical minerals, now there is a need for more renewed focus on ensuring that India will enter into multiple agreements with other countries, and India will also enter into multilateral cooperative organizations. What is the concept here? Back in the year 2019, Government of India set up an entity by the name of KABI, K-A-B-A-I. And this is basically a joint venture between Aluminium Corporation, that is National Aluminium Corporation. It is a joint venture between Mineral Resources Corporation or Mineral Exploration Resources Corporation. It is also a joint venture between the third company, that is the third company involved is Hindustan Copper. So these are the three entities which have come together in a joint venture and have set up this Khanij Bidesh organization, Khanij Bidesh International Limited. The role of Kabil is that it will enter into agreements with other companies or other country organizations. For example, it has entered into agreement with Australia, it has entered into agreement with Argentina, where multiple amount of investments are being done in basically mining out critical minerals. And it is also under negotiations with many other countries where again the investment is supposed to be done in mining, and this will ensure a continuous supply of critical minerals to India. This is point number one. Point number two, in addition to Government of India promoting an organization like this, there is also a renewed focus in India where Government of India is entering into groups of countries where certain discussion is happening regarding critical minerals, where there is a negotiation to establish a stable supply chain and also reduce the reliance on China. For example, there is a discussion in a group of countries, a 4-member country, that is Quad countries. India is one of them. In addition to India, there is USA, Japan, Australia. There is a discussion within this group that we need to ensure that there's a stable supply chain of critical minerals and we need to reduce the reliance on the Chinese exports. In addition to this, India is also a member of one more group of countries by the name of MSP, Mineral Security Partnership, where India is a member of 14 member countries. And again, the idea is the same: ensure the stable supply chain and reduce the dependence on the Chinese exports. But the article says, though Government of India as well as Kabil, there are so many reforms being undertaken, there are certain problems in India even today. There are certain concerns. What are the concerns? Point number one, the private sector participation is lagging behind in India. The private sector participation. For example, not only in these instances, earlier there was a bidding process that was conducted to basically bid out a type of a critical mineral which was found in Jammu and Kashmir. The private sector participation, which was found to be very, very less. And as a result of very low number of bids, the bidding process had to be cancelled, again had to be reconducted by the government. So private sector participation is needed because a lot of investments will come from the private sector. And point number two, we need to ensure, the concern here is, we need to ensure that there is a particular department which is set up or a division which is set up which will have focus only on developing critical mineral segment in India. For example, we have a budget division under the Ministry of Finance. There is a focus only on the development of the budget. We have commerce division. We have a logistics division. What is the use of this? Whenever you set up these kind of divisions, that is specific offices under the ministries, the focus will be targeted or the focus will be only on the specific objectives which are given to the divisions. So there is a lack of focus like this. Hence, we must set up a division under, let's say, Mines Ministry or Ministry of Mines, which will basically promote the development of the critical minerals in India. So these are some of the points which have been mentioned in this article regarding mineral diplomacy. So based on this, I've given an MCQ. Consider the following statements. The Dharmal Committee was set up regarding critical minerals by the government. Again, when I say government, the Ministry of Mines, to be very specific here. The Indian government is the first in the world to announce a list of critical minerals. The list announced has 30 minerals. How many of these three statements are true? Do let me know in the chat section. If you do not know the answer, don't worry. I will give you at the end of the discussion. I've also given a descriptive question for a descriptive answer writing practice. Historically, the countries across the world have been scrambling for the economic resources, but their weaponization is a new phenomenon. Elaborate a 15-marker question you will have to write in 250 words. Now the next article, I have taken multiple articles from Hindu as well as Indian Express. These two articles are from Hindu newspaper. This one is from Indian Express, and this is again from Hindu newspaper itself. Now before I go forward, in the last session or the discussion that I took for the newspaper analysis, in the comment section, there was one student who said, "Sir, please provide the page numbers from which you have taken the articles." My dear, I generally do not provide the page numbers for a very simple reason. Many of the times these articles are not there in Delhi edition. These are there only in the international edition. And I'm sure most of you have the habit of reading the physical paper or the hard copy of the paper. In such cases, you might be confused. That is one reason. Second reason is, I do not give the page numbers for a simple reason. From one edition to another edition, there might be difference in the serial number of the pages. So that might lead to further confusion amongst the students. That is the second reason. So let me start the discussion. I've taken 4 articles, 3 from Hindu newspaper, 1 from Indian Express. Let me summarize what is being discussed. In recent times, there is a lot of discussion regarding simultaneous elections. In fact, the government, that is the cabinet, very recently has approved a constitutional amendment bill which is supposed to be introduced in the parliament. I'm saying which is supposed to be introduced because it was expected that it would be introduced today, but government now says there is no plan as of now. That might be introduced after the work or the functions, pending work of the parliament is taken care of. As a result of this, in the coming days, you will come across the discussion regarding simultaneous elections. That is the introduction of a constitutional amendment bill. Already against this, there are various viewpoints which have been provided. One political party, BSP, has already stated it is in favor of the simultaneous elections. And another political party has already stated it is against simultaneous elections. So there is already multiple viewpoints which have been provided, and this article summarizes what are the different viewpoints which have been provided. Now, what are the points in favor of simultaneous elections? And it is not that earlier there was no simultaneous elections. After independence, for multiple cycles, in multiple election cycles, we have conducted the elections simultaneously. That is at the center as well as the state level. The Lok Sabha as well as the state legislative assembly elections were conducted in one shot. That is simultaneous elections. But after 1950s, because of what happened at the state government level, there was a discontinuation of the simultaneous elections. So what are the points which have been provided in these multiple articles in favor of the simultaneous elections? Point number 1, it will reduce the expenditure. It will reduce the expenditure that is incurred by the government, by the political parties whenever elections are conducted, right, simultaneously. That is, the argument is, many of the times the political parties or the members or the ministers, etc., are perpetually in the nature of or in the phase of elections. Because let's say Lok Sabha elections are over, then there is a state legislative assembly election. After a couple of months, couple of more states will go for elections. After a couple of months, again one more state will go for elections. So in this particular duration of, let's say, 5 years, from one Lok Sabha election to another Lok Sabha election, there will be multiple events or multiple instances where state elections will be held. Ministers, the government or the political parties, rather than focusing on the business, rather than focusing on their core agenda of governance, etc., will be focused on fighting elections. So there is a perpetuity in fighting of these elections political parties are always in the mode of elections. And when multiple elections are conducted like this, the expenditure done will also be very high, not only of the government, but also of the political parties. So that is the first very important argument in favor of simultaneous elections. Second, and those who are thinking, sir, how simultaneous elections will reduce the expenditure? The argument is, rather than conducting multiple elections throughout the 5-year duration, if all the elections of the state and the central government is conducted, or that is Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies is conducted in one shot, the expenditures will be rationalized. Second argument, whenever the elections are conducted in discontinuity, or there is no cyclicality, or there is no simultaneous elections, the machinery, that is the administrative work, would be affected. For example, let's say once you become a district magistrate, I wish all of you become district magistrate, by the way, all those who are watching. Once you become a district magistrate, if Lok Sabha elections are there, you will be put on duty. If state legislative assembly elections are there, again you will be put on duty. That is election duty. And when you put on election duty, you will not be able to conduct other administrative work. So other administrative work would be affected. That is the second point. And if you conduct simultaneous, this will not be a problem. Third point, implementation of policies, that is the announcement as well as the implementation of the policies of the government. The government now has to be worried. Let's say government wants to announce a policy which is going to provide relief to farmers. But if elections are announced, once the elections announcement takes place, the government will not be in a position to announce these kind of policies. It will not be in a position to implement these kind of policies. In many cases, the subsidies which are provided to the beneficiaries have been withheld because the elections have been announced. Right? So if simultaneous elections are conducted, all of this will not be a problem. So these are some of the arguments in favor of conducting simultaneous elections. On the other side, what are the arguments against? What are the arguments against conducting simultaneous elections? Point number one. When you conduct, let's say, elections in the current situation, your argument is your expenditure is very high. And if you conduct simultaneous elections, expenditure will come down. But do we have mechanism? Do we have sufficient manpower to conduct simultaneous elections right now? Which means you will have to require huge amount of a manpower, and conducting elections simultaneously, mind you, in a country with a population of over 100 crore is not easy. So do we have that kind of a manpower? Even today, when the state legislative assembly elections are conducted, it is done in multiple phases. It is done in multiple phases. So when state legislative assemblies elections are conducted in multiple phases, how can you conduct the elections for both state legislative assembly as well as the Lok Sabha assembly at once? That is not possible. So the manpower required will be very, very high. The arrangement requirement will be very, very high. That is not possible currently. Second argument is, you want a voter to go to the voting booth and cast votes for both Lok Sabha elections as well as state legislative assembly elections. Don't you think that can create confusion in the minds of the voter? Should I vote for this person or that person? I wanted to vote for this, but I'm confused. Is it for Lok Sabha or is it for state legislative assembly? So the confusion will be created in the minds of the voters. That is the second one. Third concern is, if simultaneous elections are conducted, what about the regional issues? What about regional parties? The regional issues will not be considered because the Lok Sabha elections are being conducted along with the state assembly elections now. Whatever is the viewpoint of the center or whatever is the viewpoint of the largest political party, they will keep on talking about those points, the regional issues will be ignored. And many of the times you must have seen this. When the state legislative assemblies elections are conducted, the regional issues will decide in which side the voter will favor. For example, it could be poverty issue, it could be water distribution issue, it could be even a simple issue as such as inflation or the onion prices. So when you talk about, let's say, simultaneous elections, the regional parties, small parties will be neglected. These are not playing any dominant role in the elections now. And regional issues will also be muffled, will be suppressed, and only the national level important issues would be considered. So regionality would be lost. And another very important factor to be considered here is whatever proposal which is being put forward, is it going to violate basic structure of the Indian Constitution? And that is in fact the viewpoint of Mr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi, one of the very well-known lawyers. His argument is that once the government will introduce the bill and make it an act, there will be multiple challenges in the Supreme Court of India, as this will end up violating basic structure of Indian Constitution. So there will be multiple challenges according to his viewpoint. In addition to this, another concern is whenever a voter will vote, and this particular political party which has the majority at the state level will form the government, because of their policies, etc., imagine they will lose favor in the state legislative assembly. That is, a no confidence motion is introduced, and the state government or the political party loses the confidence of the house. Now, what will be the solution? According to the proposal right now, there are two options. One of the proposal is that, let's say, simultaneous elections are conducted from 2030 to 2035. This is for 5-year duration. One particular state, the government there loses the confidence. And that happens, let's say, in the year 2033. So what will happen for the remainder of 2 years? What will happen in this case? The two proposals as of now is, one, we will have a presidential rule. We will go for presidential rule. And the counter argument is, why will you go for a presidential rule? If the government has lost majority, if the political party has lost majority, does it not represent a situation where you'll have to call for elections? If you go for a presidential rule, what is the background to that? On what basis are you calling for a presidential rule? What if another political party is claiming majority there, etc., etc.? So, one argument is, again, is it going to violate the basic structure of the Indian Constitution? So, for remainder 2 years, argument is, let's go for a presidential rule. Another argument is, another option that they have proposed is, we will conduct elections in 2033 and only for 2 years. I repeat, only for the next 2 years, the government will be formed. The government will be there only for the next 2 years. And again in 2035, again this is an assumption, hypothetical situation. I am not saying in 2030 simultaneous elections will be there. Do not take out your mobile and start typing it in, right? Let's say platforms such as X, or start sending text message to your friend that faculty saying simultaneous elections 2030. Absolutely no. Hypothetical situation. So only for 2 years, the government will be formed. And in 2035, again, under the simultaneous election cycle, elections will be conducted for the state legislative assembly as well. But the counter argument here is, okay, the proposal on paper looks very good. But if the voters are going to vote again in 2033, as they have done in 2030, and you want again voting to be done in 2035, does it not mean you are increasing the expenditure? Does it not mean you are going to conduct elections multiple times, increasing expenditure? That goes against your argument of conducting simultaneous elections, where you want to reduce the election expenditure. And if you keep on having multiple elections like this, if this happens in 5 states, if this happens in 8 states, If this happens in 10 states, your argument of reducing expenditure will not be valid. You will end up having multiple elections and higher expenditure at the same point of time. You'll also have to make a note of this. Why, as a voter, why should I vote for a particular political party which will be there, which will be forming government only for next 2 years? Why should I not be allowed to vote for a political party which will form the government for 5 years? Right? So these are some of the counter arguments. So at the end of this, the authors or multiple experts are saying this will go against the concept of federalism. This will go against the fundamental theory of democracy in India, etc. And that's the reason the article simply says that the elections concept, that is the simultaneous elections as a concept, is impractical as well as complicated. So to give you a, let's say, overall idea, I've given you arguments in favor of simultaneous elections as well as against the concept of simultaneous elections. Now, in addition to this, there is one more article in the editorial page today. Let's talk about one candidate, multiple constituencies. OCMC. One candidate, multiple constituencies. Now, after the independence, when we started having elections, we allowed one candidate to contest in multiple constituencies. And this power was given to the candidates, was given to the political parties to field multiple candidates, single candidate in multiple constituencies under representations of People's Act of 1951. Under this, the power was given. But over a period of time, it was found that one candidate is fighting elections in more than one constituency, will win multiple constituencies, and out of all the constituencies, they will have to hold their seat. They will have to choose only one constituency and vacate the remaining constituencies. And imagine a candidate has 1 in 3 constituencies, 1 will be kept and remaining 2 will be vacated. Now the by-elections have to be conducted in the remaining 2 constituencies. This will essentially lead to one more election being conducted in these 2 constituencies, and this will increase the cost of conducting elections in India. And that is the precise reason in 1996, the practice of fielding candidates, same candidate in multiple constituencies, was restricted. It was actually brought down. Now, according to the new amendment, a candidate can contest only from 2 constituencies, not more than 2. And this you must have seen in the recently conducted Lok Sabha elections itself, where the contestants or the political parties' candidates have contested elections in more than 1 constituency. And once they win, let's say 2 constituencies, again the argument remains the same. They will have to vacate 1 constituency, or they will have to vacate 1 seat, for which by-polls will be conducted in the next 6 months. The by-polls are supposed to be conducted in the next 6 months according to RPA Act of 1951. Now, what are the points in favor of this? Why should we allow this kind of a practice? And by the way, India is not the only country to have such a practice. Many other countries earlier have had this kind of a practice, and many countries even today have continued to have this kind of a practice. For example, Pakistan, Bangladesh, they have continued to have this kind of a practice. But on the other side, many other countries, for example, Britain, which had this kind of a practice of OCMC, has discontinued it. So argument is why? Why should we allow this to continue? And what are the points against this kind of a practice? And finally, what is the way forward? What should be the solution? Because the authors in the beginning itself say, with the submission of the report of Kovind panel, Ramnath Kovind panel, the discussion is surrounding only conducting simultaneous elections. But apart from simultaneous election, there is also a problem of OCMC. And those who later will get confused, what is OCMC? It is basically one candidate, multiple constituencies. So what are the points in favor? Point number 1, the authors basically say it will provide a cushion to a political candidate. It will provide a cushion, that is essentially, for example, for many of you who are preparing for civil services, you will have a second plan, you will have a backup. In the same way, a candidate who is fighting in the Lok Sabha elections will also have a backup plan. That is, I want to contest in this constituency, but if I end up losing here, let me also have a backup, a safety valve of a nature where there is guarantee that I will win the elections. I do not want to face the humiliation of losing elections. And if these people or these candidates have a very high stature, these are within the top ranks of the political parties, they will find it easier to get 2 constituencies allocated to them in the cycle. So that is one, essentially as a backup. Second one is, the authors say, in case of India, the political parties are identified with certain people. That is, there is a family, there is an individual who is identified with a political party. I do not want to take the names, but you will know this. Be it at the state level, be it at the central level, a political party will be identified with one person, with one family, etc. So when political parties are equated with one individual or one family like this, it becomes very important for these people to win elections. Otherwise, it will be essentially a damage to the whole political party which they are part of. And that is the precise reason these people or these personalities will end up having, will end up having 2 constituencies, participate in the elections or contest elections in 2 constituencies and might end up winning both of them, or might end up winning only one of them, or might end up losing both of them. So these are arguments in favor of continuing the practice of one candidate, multiple constituencies. But what are against? What are the points against conducting this kind of election cycle? What are the points against? Point number 1, as usual, the election cycle, understand this, means expenditure for the government. So when you conduct by-polls, for example, very recently by-polls were conducted for a Lok Sabha seat in Wayanad. So when you conduct by-polls like this, expenditure of the government will keep on increasing. And your argument is we are spending too much on elections, reduce election. Here is a solution. Do not allow the candidates to stand for elections, contest elections for multiple constituencies. Second argument is too much of black money circulation. Too much of black money circulation. Because essentially whenever you talk about expenditure by political parties during the election season or election cycle, lot of black money gets circulated. Lot of voter appeasement also takes place. So the black money that gets circulated in the economy will also keep on increasing. Undue expenditure of the political parties will also be much, much higher. Third reason why we should discontinue this. When you conduct elections like this, and according to RPA, if a seat is vacated in case of a candidate winning from 2 constituencies, the seat which is vacated, the elections for this, the by-polls for this has to be conducted in the next 6 months itself. So don't you think as a voter, if you have migrated from one region to another region to cast your vote, or even naturally also as a voter, you'll be fed up of elections. You'll simply say, what is the point? I voted, I exercised my right, but now again I'll have to travel all the way back to my village. I will have to lose my wages. Or I voted 3 months ago or 5 months ago. That candidate has vacated. He has basically, not disappointed me. I do not want to vote again, or I'll vote for another political party. So voter confidence in the elections would be affected. In fact, the authors, or let's say the writers, have given data regarding the by-polls which were conducted very recently, where it has been seen that the voter participation or the voting rate has actually declined, has fallen during by-polls compared to the actual Lok Sabha elections which were conducted in 2024. So these were certain points, or these are certain points against one candidate, multiple constituencies. Finally, what is the way forward then? What should be the solution for all of this? The way forward is 1. Amend RPA. Do not allow a candidate to contest in multiple constituencies. Do not allow them. Amend RPA. Amend the RPA. This is the first recommendation, but very difficult. You know why. Amend RPA. Second one is, whenever the by-polls are conducted like this, the candidate who has vacated the seat asks the expenditure to be borne by this candidate. Is the point clear to all of you? Imagine, again, imagine. I contest elections in 2 seats. I win in both of them. I will vacate the second constituency. Now, whatever is the cost of conducting elections in the second constituency will have to be borne by me. Again, for that, you need amendment. So, cost of conducting by-polls should be collected from the candidate. Third one, in fact, these recommendations have been provided by Election Commission of India, Law Commission as well. So, the third one is, whenever you want to conduct by-polls, do not conduct it immediately within 6 months. Do not conduct it. Why? A candidate from a ruling party will always have an upper hand. I'll repeat the statement. The candidate from the ruling party will always have an upper hand. That could be because the government now will start announcing a lot of policies which are pro-poor, or the government might simply have a lot of mechanism, lot of manpower through their, let's say executive authority. They might end up providing undue advantage to this candidate. So do not conduct the elections immediately. Give certain time period. That is, if the seat is vacated, wait for the next 1 year. After 1 year, let the people absorb the information. Let the people understand what has happened. Let the people also understand and evaluate the policies of the government. And after 1 year, conduct by-polls. After 1 year, conduct the by-polls. These are the recommendations against the practice of one candidate, multiple constituencies. Next article, how would a carbon market function? How will the carbon market function? What are the important points here? Please listen to me carefully. The concept of carbon market being developed across the globe, across multiple countries, was actually recommended in the Kyoto Protocol, 1997 Kyoto Protocol. And before this, where was this concept of carbon mechanism introduced, or carbon trading as a concept introduced? It was not actually carbon trading, but earlier this was essentially the concept of the cap and trade. Remember the name, the cap and trade. The concept of cap and trade was introduced during 1980s in USA. And what is this cap and trade? In USA at that point of time, there were multiple power plant units which used to burn lot of coal. And when you burn lot of coal like this, inefficiently mind you, sulfur dioxide will be one of the emissions. And this sulfur dioxide, when it will react with, let's say multiple gases along with water vapor in the air, it will actually lead to, acid rain. It would lead to acid rain. And there have been multiple instances in the past. Now, to control the emissions or the pollution that is caused by these power plants, the government back in 1990s introduced the concept of cap and trade. And under this, the concept of carbon trading, similar, not carbon trading, but it was more associated with sulfur dioxide. I'll discuss carbon trading in a nutshell in a minute. A similar concept was introduced. And this, to a very great extent, was helpful in reducing the emissions. And that is the precise reason the Kyoto Protocol recommended using the same model to promote the concept of carbon trading, reduce carbon emissions across multiple countries. That is the background. Point number 2. What is this concept of a carbon trading or carbon market mechanism? basically under this, the governments across the world will be determining certain number of carbon units that can be emitted when you're manufacturing or producing. Now let's say hypothetically, government of India decides in India 1 ton of carbon dioxide will be emitted this year. Again, I'm taking a very simple number, 1 ton. Now there will be carbon credits that will be given to these companies, certificates that will be given to these companies according to their emissions. Whatever is the allocation done to the companies will have to limit their emissions below this. Simple. For example, if there is a manufacturer, if 1000 kg is allocated, 1000 kg of carbon credit is allocated to this company shall reduce its emission limited to 1000 kgs. What if it is more than 1000 kgs? Then whatever is the excess, that amount, right? That amount of carbon they will have to purchase from somebody else. They will have to purchase it from somebody else. That is essentially the concept of a carbon market mechanism. Now, who will sell it? Imagine there is one more company. For another company, the allocation done by the government is 5000 kgs. Allocation done is 5000 kgs, right? And this company is able to emit only 3000 kgs of carbon dioxide. Now, this additional or surplus 2000 kgs can be sold by this company to the first company. This is essentially how the carbon market will work. The price of this, right, the price of this 1000 kgs, because remember this, the carbon credits are usually sold in units of 1000 kgs. The carbon credits are sold in the units of 1000 kgs. So essentially, the 2000 credits or 2000 kg that will be sold by this company to another company or the first company, the pricing of this will be determined by supply and demand. The supply and demand in the market will determine what is the price of this carbon credit. This is the point number 2. Point number 3, along with this, understand this, along with this, there is one more term which I have not seen in earlier discussion regarding carbon credit, but suddenly in this article they have mentioned. They have mentioned something called as carbon offset. They have mentioned something by the name of carbon offset. What is a carbon offset? Essentially, let's say there is an NGO, non-government organization. This NGO is basically involved in planting of trees. Now, when you are involved in the planting of trees, automatically the trees will capture the carbon dioxide which is present in the air, which means this NGO is not reducing, is not controlling its emission. No, it is not involved in controlling of emission. Rather, it is involved in reducing of the carbon dioxide which is already present in the environment or in the atmosphere. These NGOs are allowed to sell carbon offsets. Is it okay? These are allowed to sell carbon offsets. So, under the carbon market, carbon credits can be sold. Carbon offsets can also be sold. Now, what are the concerns regarding this? On paper, the model looks very good. I hope you understand this. On paper, the model looks very good. Your argument will be such a beautiful model. You are right, basically emitting. Now, if you are emitting more than what you are mandated to, now you will have to purchase carbon credits. That is a punishment. That is something that will basically prohibit you from reducing emissions in the future. But there are certain problems here. What are the problems or concerns? One, how will the government in any case decide how much will be the carbon emission threshold for the country? On what basis we will decide? Is it okay? Point number 1, on what basis the governments will decide how much will be the carbon, let's say, emission decided for a country, and how will you allocate it to individual companies? First concern. Second concern, if a particular country wants to, right, basically plug this, basically manipulate the system. If they want to manipulate the system, they might ensure that the carbon units which are allocated to countries or the companies in this country, the carbon units or carbon emission levels will be set up at very high level. For example, I said, imagine in case of India, 100 tons or let's say 1000 tons is the limit. Now, the emission in India, we want to control it at 1000 tons. What if Government of India says, let's not worry about ecological protection. Let's not worry about protection of environment. I want to promote more and more industrialization. I want to attract more and more investment in the manufacturing sector, etc. In such case, rather than keeping it at 1000 tons, can Government of India increase it to, right, let's say 8000 tons? Because essentially the argument here is, if you control emission, industrial activity would be affected. And if you increase the emission levels, industrial activity would be higher, growth would be higher. But here, more pollution, more impact on the environment. So the concern is simply this. Second one, right, what if governments decide to increase the carbon allocation just to achieve a higher growth? And at any point of time, they can also manipulate by adjusting an amount of carbon credits which are there in the supply. If suddenly the carbon credit supply comes down, the pricing will start increasing. If the carbon credit supply increases, prices will drop. And when the prices will drop, there is no incentive for the company. I hope you understand. I just want to bring in a statement that was given by Mr. Joseph Stiglitz. Remember this. Mr. Joseph Stiglitz is a Nobel laureate, by the way. Economics Nobel laureate. Mr. Joseph Stiglitz says, currently there is no incentive for the companies to reduce emission. No incentive. Why? Imagine a carbon credit is available to you at, let's say, $50. And the carbon credit that is available to you is $50, which means if you want to purchase 1000 kgs of carbon dioxide, that excessive that you are going to emit, you'll have to spend $50 and purchase. This might not be sufficient an incentive or let's say sufficient a penalty for this company to emit more. It might be a very small amount they will pay and they will continue to emit more and more. And that's the reason Mr. Joseph Stiglitz says you need to ensure higher pricing for carbon credits. And on the other side, even if you violate these norms, if you end up violating these norms, he says there is no stiff penalty or tough penalties which are imposed on these companies. Right? He quotes the regulations in the European Union market to prove the point, says that even if you violate, you will end up paying a penalty of 200 euros or 300 euros. That is not a very big penalty for them. But on paper, the concept of carbon credit, carbon market looks very nice. And many companies use this market to basically clean their image. Remember the statement. He says it is used as a mechanism to clean their image in the consciousness of the consumers in the market. It is used as a laundromat of cleaning, or laundromat of images for the companies. For example, many companies which are very big polluters will end up basically purchasing carbon offsets. And there's a problem with respect to implementation of carbon offsets as well. That is, how do you implement carbon offsets? In many cases, it has been seen that a forest which is already present, forest which is already there, tree which is already there has been counted as a part of carbon offset. So the experts are saying, who is going to police this? Who is going to take care of this? Right, etc. So these are some of the concerns regarding the carbon market mechanism, the advantages as well as the concerns regarding the carbon market mechanism provided in the article. Now, let me go to the next article, the digital frontier of inequality. Right, what is given in this? The government of India in the last couple of, let's say years, especially in the last 1.5 decade, has implemented multiple policies, multiple technologies have been implemented. And as a result of this, the empowerment of women has improved. For example, Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, PMJDY. PMJDY is a part of the Trinity, JAM Trinity, which is being used by the government. And JAM Trinity is a part of the digital public infrastructure. So under the JAM Trinity, PMJDY, you will see that more than 55% of the accounts are held by women. And that shows empowerment of women, because now these accounts can be used to borrow. These accounts can be used to transfer benefits into, let's say, directly into the account of the beneficiaries, etc. But much more importantly, the introduction of technology has also led to certain unsavory outcomes, unnecessary outcomes which are not required, which are damaging, hurting the outcomes. For example, what if the technology is used for cyberbullying? What if the technology is used for cyber stalking? What if internet is used to basically share the images, photos of certain people which should not be there in the public domain? And whenever this happens, and this has happened, United Nations says that, even Government of India's documents also say that, when this happens, the girls or the women basically move away from usage of technology. And there is a need to use technology in the current situation. For example, the UPSC aspirants, you are expected to use the technology. In the process of preparing for civil services examination, you are supposed to use. That will help you in doing smart work. So the argument is, United Nations, UN Women, a part of United Nations, and the Government of India has taken certain reforms in recent times. For example, the Information Technology Act, certain provisions under the Information Technology Act basically try to counter these kind of activities. There are certain provisions in Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita also. Right? There are certain provisions in Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, right? The 2024 Act, and even the earlier Indian Penal Code also had certain provisions to basically take care of such kind of activities, that is abuse of digital technology targeting women. But having said so, the article or the authors simply say that there is more needs to be done. We are supposed to do more to protect women, to protect girls from being a target, as well as, right, let's say, suffering from these kind of activities. What can be done? Right, look at the recommendations which have been provided. There is a concept of a whole approach. That is, all the stakeholders which are involved should work together to address these problems. Whole of approach. Here, who are the stakeholders? The companies which will provide technology to you are the stakeholders. For example, let's say a platform such as X. Is it not a stakeholder? Of course, yes. The Meta, is it not a stakeholder? Yes. So the companies which are providing technology, the government as well as the people, all of these are the stakeholders. What are the recommendations? Point number 1. The companies should develop better technologies to basically identify if there is any account which is being used for targeting women. For example, trolling. Lot of trolling happens, especially if you are, let's say, a celebrity. Sometimes the trolling is, let's say, taken to such an extent, the person who is receiving at the receiving end will end up harming himself or herself. So can we develop, let's say, tools such as artificial intelligence, which can keep on monitoring all of these accounts and flag certain accounts which are providing harmful content. Right? That is the first recommendation. Second recommendation, the second stakeholders, that is you and me, especially in rural India. The author simply say, especially in rural India, there is a need to sanitize people. There is a need to educate people, especially boys. Especially boys, because knowing or without knowing, they might end up becoming a party to such kind of unrequired activities or illegal activities in many cases. So there is a need to educate them. There's a need to provide digital literacy to them to ensure these events will be curtailed at the young age itself. Third, the girls and women. In many cases, the women or the girls who are facing these kind of difficulties, who are facing these kind of situations, are not even aware of their rights. are not even aware of their powers and their rights and the legal recourse that they are supposed to take. For example, what are the provisions under Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita? They may not know. They may not even know that there are provisions like this which will protect their identity, which will protect them from these kind of outcomes. So you need to educate the girls as well as the women population. And finally, the government. It is the duty of the government to ensure that sufficient training is done. In fact, the authors go on and say that this can be introduced as a part of learning courses itself. That is, how do we use technology in a better way? What are the repercussions if you are involved in these kind of activities, etc. So these kind of recommendations have been provided in the article regarding using digital technology to promote empowerment and not limiting the participation of women. Okay, next, these are very big articles, right, for mainly for the mains preparation. The next couple of articles are more related to prelims. Let's start now. Center launches Jalvahak Scheme for cargo movement via inland waterways. Please understand, whenever you talk about transportation or logistics in India, and by the way, I hope all of you know there is a difference between what is transportation and what is logistics. What is the difference? Do let me know. Or is there anyone who is watching this live or even after recorded version who thinks both are one and the same? Logistics is equal to transportation. Please do let me know what is your answer to this question in the chat section or in the comment section. Let me start now. So whenever you talk about logistics or transportation in India, most of the transportation actually happens through road movement, right? It happens through road movement. According to Government of India's document, 65% of the transportation is done through road. Hardly 2% of the transportation is done through inland waterways. What do you mean by inland waterways? Let's say there is a flow of river water, there is canal water. You will be using these, right? Let's say the pathways or using these modes for transportation purposes. That is essentially the concept of inland waterways. Right? So argument is only 2%, hardly around 2% of the transportation in India is done through inland waterways. Whereas you compare the inland waterways through road or to railways transportation, inland waterways is much more efficient in terms of cost, in terms of emission, etc. So you need to promote using inland waterways as more and more a mode of a transportation. But historically speaking in India, the promotion, the development and maintenance of inland waterways has been lagging behind. And that's a precise reason. Compared to the 5 inland waterways earlier which were present, the Government of India made an amendment, introduced the bill, and as a result of this, including these existing 5, the Government of India identified 111 waterways as inland waterways. And the Inland Waterways Authority of India, which is existing from 1986, was given the responsibility of developing, maintaining, regulating and promoting usage of these inland waterways. Right? So as a result of all of this, the usage of inland waterways has increased. But even today there is a concern regarding usage of inland waterways. For example, there is a problem or there is a concern regarding the draft that is present. Whenever larger vessels will try to transport huge quantity of, let's say, goods or the freight from one point to another point, there is a danger that if the draft is very shallow, if the depth of the river is not sufficient, it might end up getting stuck up in the mid-river. So the draft is a bigger concern as of now, which will basically mean the government has to take more measures, more policy steps have to be taken in order to promote usage of inland waterways. Now, what has the Government of India done? The government has announced a new scheme by the name of Jalvahak Scheme. Under this Jalvahak Scheme, 35% of the operational expenses, 35% of the operational expenses will be provided in the form of subsidy by the government. Is it okay? I'll repeat the statement. 35% of the operational expenses, that is how much expenditure do you incur whenever you conduct these kind of operations, these are called as operational expenses. 35% of this will be reimbursed, will be subsidized by the government. And the expectation is that with these kind of initiatives, more and more of freight will move from the land mode of a transportation, that is, let's say, road mode of a transportation, to inland waterways mode of a transportation. Done? So this is one more initiative of Government of India to promote inland waterways. Now, associated with this, one more MCQ. Consider the following statements. The Inland Waterways Authority of India has been set up to develop and regulate national waterways. The government has declared a total of 111 national waterways. IWAI-1 is the longest national waterway in India. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 16. These are the ones which are mainly being used now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 16. And what are these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 16? These are the names which have been provided to the waterways. Multiple river linkages are used here, and these are the names which are provided. How many of these statements are true? Do let me know in the chat section. I'll discuss the key answer later. Now, there is one more issue that has arisen between a state government and the central government, that is the state of Tamil Nadu and the central government, regarding the mining. And one more issue where there is a friction between the center and state regarding the federalist concept. Now, what are the points here? Points are very simple. The government-owned entity, that is MEC, Mineral Exploration Corporation, MEC, a government-owned entity, has conducted surveys in certain regions. One of the region is a part of Tamil Nadu, and it has found that there is a ore, primary ore in fact. There is a primary ore for tungsten. There's a primary ore for tungsten which can be mined out successfully or commercially in this particular region. Now, after this survey was conducted, the Government of India called for bids, and this power to the Government of India is given under Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Act 1957. Okay, under the powers of MMD Act of 1957, Government of India called for mining bidding or mine bidding for this particular region, and a particular company, private sector company, don't worry, it has been allocated the bid. Now, the concern is that the state government of Tamil Nadu says that it was not consulted during the process. Point number 2, when the allocation was done, or when the discussion regarding allocation or auctioning was being conducted, bidding was conducted, the state government last year opposed this particular move of the central government. Now, against these arguments, the central government says, point number 1, there is a requirement of mining out tungsten. And when I'm talking about tungsten, please remember the ore that is being mined out here. The ore that is present, the primary ore that is present is basically scheelite. Scheelite is the primary ore of tungsten which is present here. Now, suddenly UPSC can ask you the other primary ores or other ores which are associated with tungsten. So, apart from scheelite, there is wolframite. This is one more type of ore, primary ore for mining of tungsten. Apart from this, there is also Fowler's, and there is also hubnerite. These are the different types of ores using which you can mine out or process tungsten. Please remember the names. Suddenly UPSC can ask you this in the prelims. And tungsten is required in the civil aviation market. It is required in electronic industry, etc., defense sector, etc. There are varied applications of tungsten. So, Government of India one says, in the national interest, we need to mine out. In the national interest, we need to mine it out. Second one, we have the power under the MMDR Act of 1957 to allocate mining. And point number 3, the government says Tamil Nadu government did not formally, I repeat, the Tamil Nadu government did not formally raise any objections to the allocation. Did not raise any objections formally for allocation of this particular project. In addition to this, there is a cultural angle to all of this. That is, in the region that has been identified in Tamil Nadu, this is declared as a biodiversity. Certain part of it is declared as biodiversity heritage site. Right? It has been declared as biodiversity heritage site. And the concern is, when you conduct mining, lot of wastages can be emitted. The land which is there in the surrounding region can lose the quality. The water which is present can also become poisonous. And when you conduct mining, lot of emissions are going to take place. What about the health of the people in the surrounding region, and the displacement of the people might also happen. In addition to all of this, the concern is also the biodiversity heritage site. There will be loss of cultural value of importance. Right? So this is the argument which has been put forward against allocation of mining lease for a private sector company by the central government. The State Legislative Assembly in Tamil Nadu unanimously, I repeat, unanimously has passed a resolution asking the center to withdraw the license. Done? Okay. Next one is a Polavaram Project. Right? Why BJD is opposing Polavaram Project? Very simple points here. The Polavaram Project, right, has come in the news very recently, partly because in the budget which was announced very recently, July 2024, the budget which was announced by the government, more than 50,000 crore rupee was allocated to Andhra Pradesh. Again, I'm not targeting any particular state here, just to make you understand the points. More than 50,000 crore rupee was allocated to Andhra Pradesh. And out of more than 50,000 crore rupee, 15,000 crore rupees was allocated by the center in the budget for the implementation of Polavaram Project. In fact, Mr. Chandrababu Naidu, during the election cycle, had made a statement that once he becomes the chief minister, he will ensure that the Polavaram project, infrastructure irrigation project, would be completed. And mind you, this is not a new project. It is not a project which was announced yesterday or let's say last year during the elections. No. This Polavaram project is an outcome of, right, the negotiations or the water disputes that was raised between the three states. And, right, according to the Godavari Water Dispute Tribunal, GWDT, according to this particular tribunal ruling, this project was supposed to be implemented by the state of Andhra Pradesh. That was responsible for this irrigation project. But over a period of time, because of various issues, despite this being more than 2 decades since the announcement of the project, it is not yet over. And the government in the recently announced budget has allocated 15,000 crore rupee for this. In addition to this, remember one more point. This Polavaram project, when Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act was implemented, this was basically announced and categorized. It was categorized as an irrigation project, which is a national project. Remember this particular point. It is a national project according to the provisions under Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act of 2014. Now, what is this concept of a national project? Government of India's documents basically say, if a particular irrigation project has to be identified and notified as a national project, they will have to meet one of the conditions. One, it has to be an international project. Between multiple countries, it has to be an international project which is being implemented through a particular agreement. Second, or, right, it is not and, or. Second, it is an intrastate project which has fallen into a dispute and all the states in the party agree for the implementation of this project. There is no other dispute now. That is the second. Or third condition now. Or it is it is intrastate. Earlier inter, now it is intra. Intra means within the same state. It is intrastate project, but here the area that is covered is more than 2.5 lakh hectares. It is more than 2.5 lakh hectares. That is also one more condition. Or fourth, management, repairs, right, etc. of a irrigation project which is basically covering a region of more than 2.5 lakh hectares, that will also be, or that might also be announced or declared as a national project. So these are the four conditions. If you meet any one of the conditions, because it is or, you meet any one of the condition, Government of India can declare your project as a national project. Done. Now, what is the concern which has been raised by the BJD? The BJD simply says, when the original proposal was put forward, we agreed, but the proposal now has been modified. The project has been modified. When the backwaters will arise, or when the backwaters will be there, it is going to hamper lot of area that will be covered. It is going to lead to, right, movement, displacement of the people, etc. There is no, let's say, scientific approach which has been followed, no surveys which have been conducted, and nobody has evaluated new project which is being implemented by Andhra Pradesh. That is the reason why BJD is opposing the new Polavaram project. Okay. Next. Now there is a request, or there is a discussion regarding carbon trading of temple. In Sambal, now there is right, a letter which has been written by district magistrate asking the ASI, Archaeological Survey of India, to conduct carbon dating of a particular temple there. Again, more of the discussion has been towards the political angle, religious angle. You don't enter into that. What is the point to be noted here? Suddenly, because of this article, UPSC can ask you about carbon dating. So please be aware of the concept of a carbon dating. Essentially, in a nutshell, I'll tell you, there are different isotopes of carbon. Okay, there are different, types of carbon which are available in the nature. You have C12, you have C14, you have C13, but focus on 12 and 14. Whenever living beings, be it plant, be it, let's say, anybody, whenever you keep on breathing, right, you keep on inhaling and exhaling. So there is certain level of carbon which is present, and when you stop breathing and when you become part of a fossil like this, after a certain period of time, the C14, it is radioactive. Remember this, it is radioactive and keeps on decaying. And the half-life of C14 is essentially 5,730 years. So the half-life essentially means the amount becomes half of what is presently the amount. That is called as half-life. So you have an equilibrium between how much is C12 and how much is C14. And C12 remains the same, C14 keeps on, right, decaying. Under carbon dating, we basically measure what has happened to this amount. What has happened to the equilibrium? How much has been the shift? That is measured to find out what is the age of the fossil here. What is the age of the fossil? That is essentially the use of the carbon dating which is being discussed in this article here. Okay. Next, olive Ridley turtles. Olive Ridley turtles. Now, what are the important points? Point number one, please have a look at the protection status. UPSC has the tendency of asking this question. Be very careful. Okay. What is the protection status? It is covered, or it is protected under Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, Schedule 1. It is also covered under Appendix 1 of CITES. It is also classified as vulnerable by IUCN. Remember the protection status, and to be very precise here, I'll be very frank, the articles regarding Ridley turtles or Oliver Ridley turtles is very common. In Hindu newspaper, it is very, very common. What are the points? Right? The points are very simple here. Because of the fishing activity, in Odisha as well as in Andhra Pradesh, because that is the coastal region where generally these Ridley turtles will come to the shore and nest. So because of the fishing activity and a lot of pollution that has been done, a large number of olive Ridley turtles are dying. right? Beyond this, there is nothing else given in the article, right? They have basically mentioned that the Andhra Pradesh Forest Department will conduct this, etc. Remember the name of Olivia, right? Olivia is an exercise which is used to basically protect the nesting sites of the olive turtles. Okay, done. Next, simple factual information. Kerch Strait, a Russian tanker which was carrying oil, right? The Russian tanker which was carrying oil has basically sunk, has broken and sunk, has split into two parts and sunk into this particular region which is going by the name of Kerch Strait. And where does the Kerch Strait basically is located in the map? It is right exactly between this region of Crimea, which has been occupied by Russia. One of the reasons why there's a friction between Russia and Ukraine and the mainland Russia. It is here that the Kerch Strait is present, right? So questions can be asked. Remember the Sea of Azov, Black Sea. The Kerch Strait basically connects Sea of Azov as well as Black Sea, right? Beyond this, how many containers have right submerged, right? How much oil has spilled, etc. That is not at all important. Don't waste your time on that. Okay, last article, again factual information. India has set up its first diabetes biobank, right? This article is present in today's Business Line newspaper, not in Hindu. It is present in Business Line and Business Standard. So what is the importance of this article? In recent times, there has been a lot of discussion regarding non-communicable diseases, right? I only have discussed multiple articles in Hindu newspaper regarding what is the issue of non-communicable diseases in India, etc., etc. One way that you can address this problem of non-communicable diseases is that you can conduct very thorough survey, you can collect a lot of samples and conduct studies across multiple organizations. But for that, let's say for example, diabetes, study of diabetes, you need to collect a lot of samples throughout India. That kind of a survey or that kind of exercise has already been conducted. Now to basically go to the next level, we have announced setting up of a biobank. What is the use of a biobank? Biobank will collect all of this. Let's say the blood samples which have been collected. The biobank will collect all of this and to different institutions, they will make the samples available. It will become a one point, or it will basically become one place which will collect, store, process, distribute, allocate, etc. All of this work will be done in this particular biobank which has been set up at Chennai. And by the way, like I said, this is the first biobank ever set up in India regarding diabetes, right? So that is the reason. Please be very careful. This can be asked in the prelims as a fact-based question. Okay. Now, let me solve the two MCQs that I've taken up earlier or I've given earlier. Question number 46. The Dermal Committee was set up regarding critical minerals by the government. Yes. Critical minerals? Yes. The Indian government is the first in the world to announce a list of critical minerals. Is it the first? Absolutely no. USA has announced a list of 50 critical minerals. UK has announced a list of 18 critical minerals. Canada has announced a list of 31 critical minerals. So India is not the first, India is one of them. The list announced as the 30 minerals, yes, the first list that was announced by the government. And again, some of you might be thinking, sir, what is the use of the list? Why should I be worried? Whenever the government prepares a list like this, it simply means it will provide an impetus. Essentially, it will promote mining of these minerals now. Policy focus will be on these minerals. Okay. So, first and third statements are true. Right option will be option B. Only two of the statements are true. Question number 47. Consider the following statements. Inland Water Authority of India, IWAI, has been set up to develop and regulate national waterways. Yes. The government has declared a total of 111 national waterways. Yes. IWAI is the longest national waterway in India. I cannot show you the list of all the 111 national waterways because that means I will have to create pictures. I'll have to put pictures in around 10 slides. What I've done is, I've taken the picture from PIB website. And this information was provided in the month of August 2024. According to the information that has been provided, the National Waterway 1, which basically connects or which is present in the states UP, Bihar, Jharkhand and West Bengal, and these are the rivers which are being used for developing this waterway. It is the longest waterway in India, longest waterway. And if you put together all the 111 waterways, the total length is more than 20,000 kilometers. More than 20,000 kilometers. I'm telling you this because most of you will read only this statement. India has a coastline or a shoreline of 14,500 kilometers, and you will believe that that is the length. No, right? More than 20,000 kilometers. Okay. So the Inland Waterway 1 has a total length of more than 1,600, which is the longest. Done? Right, so IWAI is the longest national waterway in India. Yes, all the three statements are true. Right option will be option C. All the three are correct. So these are the various important articles as well as the questions and the concepts that I wanted to discuss with you people in today's session. And by the way, if you have any questions regarding, let's say, concepts of economics, do let me know in the chat section, or let's say at least in the comment section, so that tomorrow, again, I'm only going to take up the discussion for Hindu news analysis. I'll pick up and I'll address your questions. Okay, so that's it from my side. If you like this initiative, do hit the like button. And if you're yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Thank you. Have a great day. See you tomorrow sharp at 10 a.m.